Well, it's a fun week in the National Hockey League. You have the draft coming up as well as the official start of free agency. And Marc Bergevin got an early start in his shopping, picking up Joel Edmundson, as well as Jake Allen to back up Carey Price. Then he goes and signs Jeff Petrie. He's been very busy as we welcome in Habs insider Eric Engels. What do you make of the move so far by Bergevin?
Well, first of all, let's start with Jake Allen. You have an established backup goaltender who just transitioned to backup and put up his best season in the NHL. I think that's going to help Carey Price quite a bit, who needs some rest. They obviously have not been on trend in terms of resting their goaltender. Carey Price played pretty much more than any other goaltender in the league this year. The fact that they're going into potentially playing a condensed schedule, probably playing a condensed schedule, that's going to help them. And the fact also that Allen has moonlighted as a starter in this league will help in case Carey Price goes down. On Joel Edmundson, I really like this signing by Marc Bergevin. I think a lot of people look at the individual part and they say, oh, the analytics aren't favorable, or, oh, he's not an elite puck mover. He's a 6'4" guy who skates extremely well, is known as a very good teammate, and a guy that when you look at the whole of the parts here, you look at the Canadiens' defense, there's monsters back there with Shea Weber and Ben Sherrod and Jeff Petrie and Edmundson, and he'll be a good complement to Petrie's skill, and you can bring Alex Romanov along a little bit, slower in his development. It's going to be his first year in the NHL. He's got high expectations on his shoulders, and if he's able to take over and end up in that second pairing, even better for Montreal. But the internal competition is going to be there because Brett Kulak was also great in the playoffs for the Canadiens.
Yeah, goaltending and defense, clearly the strength of this Canadiens team. Big, skilled, and nasty at times, that blue line of the Montreal Canadiens, all the things you would want. But up front, a smaller group and a group that struggled to score consistently through the season and into the postseason. Is that the number one objective for Marc Bergevin, to get more offensively skilled players?
There's no question about it, and he's telling everybody who will listen that he's open for business, whether it's his first-round pick, 16th overall, or some of his second-round picks, or any picks, or some of his prospects, or some of his roster players. He knows there's a glaring need for an elite scorer on this team, and he's going to do everything possible to fill that need over the next week. And I think it's going to be an extremely busy time for Marc Bergevin on that front. His phone should be ringing off the hook.
Are they comfortable up the middle?
It's a great question, David. I think people look in Montreal at Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi in the 10 games they played in the playoffs, and they get overly excited. I don't expect a big drop-off from Suzuki. I think we've seen a gradual build for him. When you look at Kotkaniemi, what a breakout that was in the playoffs, because you look at his season, the injuries plagued him, the confidence wasn't there. There was real questions as to whether or not the Canadiens should have even chosen this player at third overall. Leave it for Quebec and Canadiens fans to have a referendum about a player who's not even a year into his NHL career. But he answered a lot of questions, and that helps because Phillip Danault is the solid piece up the middle for the Canadiens. He kind of, gets everybody comfortable, puts everybody in the right place. He can play both sides of the puck. He can play up and down the lineup. I know we've heard his name in the market a little bit, but I don't see anything there. I think that's all noise. I think the Canadiens are going to sign him to a long-term deal in short order, I think, over the next few weeks. And they have Jake Evans, who they just extended. So they're looking good up the middle.
So where does that leave Max Domi?
Great question, because I didn't mention him among their centers. And it's, ironic because the Canadiens see him as a better player at center, and he sees himself as a better player at center. And so do I, because he's a smaller guy. And when he gets on the wing, he gets glued on the wall. And that's not really good for him to bring out the tenacious elements of his game. So I think Max Domi is in a situation where he's kind of, square peg, round hole, or maybe I got that expression mixed up, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
You got it right.
They have to find the right place for him to play, and I don't think it's going to be at the wing, and therefore he could be a piece that they use to get that scoring help up front. Also, they're going to try and look for some depth on this roster. Maybe that's where they turn to the unrestricted free agent market, David, because they have some opportunities to get some guys that fill out the bottom end of the roster up front that bring some of that size element that we were talking about before.
Well, listen, Eric, it's an exciting time for Montreal Canadiens fans. They have the assets. They have salary cap space, which is coveted right now. As well, they have the draft picks. 8 picks in the first 4 rounds for Marc Bergevin and the Montreal Canadiens. It's going to be a very busy week covering the Habs for you. So thanks for your insider scoop right here, Eric Engels.
Always a pleasure.